Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Gfinity Arena for day 2 of the Hearthstone Summer Masters 2. It is Championship Sunday. We are here to crown a new star of Hearthstone. Once again, joining me on the desk, Lothar and Monk, waving kind of creepily back and forward, washing the windows here on the desk so far.
That's the new dance here. No.
Guys, are you excited for Championship Sunday?
Yeah, it's the semifinals and the second semifinal, then the final, and so it will. I'm sure we're in for a treat here.
Yeah, pretty straightforward day. We're going to see a lot of great players, especially Greensheep and Hoej, who we predicted to move on, and indeed they did.
Yep, today's schedule pretty simple. We'll take you through it anyway, just in case. So we're going to have your first semi-final, then the second semi-final, then a grand final. It's the way to do these things. We'll get into those matches specifically in just a couple of minutes. But what are they playing for? That's what matters at the end of the day. This is what they're here for. It's a share of $10,000, $5,000 for first prize. All of our 4 players who've made it to the semi-finals have already banked $1,250. They've got that. That's safe. But they can move on and they can take $2,500 for coming second or $5,000 for coming first. It's a potentially life-changing amount of money, Monk.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think for at least Hoej and Greensheep, it'll kind of be like a regular work day. Winning $5,000 isn't too abnormal.
I'd like that to be my regular work day.
Yeah, but then like you have the other players. You have Seekstreet, you have Failey, who have probably never won that much money or seen that much money from a Hearthstone or any kind of video game tournament. And to be able to say to your friends, "Hey, I won $5,000 at a Hearthstone tournament," that's pretty big for them.
Absolutely. Of course, we did have the groups yesterday, and we had 4 players drop out at that stage, which left us with the 4 players that we have for our semi-finals today. You can see in Group A, Cypher, who was one of the favourites maybe to advance to this stage and maybe even take the whole tournament. He's been on tear recently, but he dropped out of Group A very quickly. Weasel also dropping out, leaving Hoej coming first and Farley as well. Seekstreet winning Group B in something of an upset, beating Greensheep in that winner's match, and then Greensheep managing to gut it out, win the rematch against Seekstreet and come second. Seekstreet and Kevik were the ones that we lost.
To be honest, Seekstreet kind of got the game from Greensheep.
Sure, he did. Yeah. I think we'll talk about that as we move into our semi-finals. Well, obviously the matchups that we have for today, the first one, you're not going to want to miss this. This could easily be the final of any tournament anywhere, I think. Hoej versus Greensheep in our first semi-final. And then a huge opportunity for our other 2 players, Seekstreet and Farley, who one of them is going to the final. We have a guaranteed Czech representative in the final today, Lothar.
That's amazing. I mean, when it comes to Czech Republic, they have a really well-built scene, not only for gaming, not only for esports, I mean for board games, for card games. Yeah. Czech is basically the second Germany when it comes to board games and card games, so I'm not surprised that there are so many Czech players in our scene.
Yeah, of course, Stan Sivka was one of the players who is leading one of the leading lights of the Czech national scene in Hearthstone, and Seekstreet's been practicing with him. What kind of experience do you think that Seekstreet can bring in from practicing with better players, Monk, that can help him in the semi-finals here?
Yeah, Stan Sivka might be considered a better player by most of the scene, but when I talked to Stan Sivka a few months ago when he was first bursting onto the scene, he told me pretty much that the Czech Republic had a lot of great players that were really unknown, and he might even consider that some of them better than him.
Well, we're going to find out a little bit more about those Czech players later on in a second semi-final. But of course, our first semi-final is going to be Hoej versus Greensheep. And we have something a little bit special for you here. We managed to catch up with these players, sit down with them a little bit earlier on, and find out what it could take for you to be somewhere like this in their shoes. Check it out.
A lot of people think they need certain skills or talent to play the game, but in the very beginning, just everybody can play. It's really approachable.
If you're just starting out or like becoming good at Hearthstone, firstly you want to play a lot of the game, like in ranked play. You want to see how you stack up there.
And don't be afraid to lose, because I've lost like thousands of games. But like, it's the winning games who matters in the end. It's like you learn something every game. It's a ladder, and tournaments is way different. You just have to keep trying, and at some point you will win.
If you think you're pretty good, then you can start like watching streams, looking up deck lists online, just learning off the professionals.
The best advice I can give is like watch streamers. They maybe only play 1-2 classes, but you can learn so much from those classes they're playing.
Also, if you're just in their stream, you just say something in chat, ask a question in chat, and I'm sure they're willing to help you improve on your game.
You can read articles about what types of players there are, the instinctual players, strategical players, mathematical players, and just try to get that knowledge and apply it to Hearthstone.
I've never traveled so much that I've done this year. It's like been to so many different countries and met so many different kind of personalities.
BlizzCon, I've been to like the World Championships, I've been to multiple DreamHacks and places that I probably wouldn't go if I wasn't playing Hearthstone.
Yeah, and it's just fun to be on the stage and get the goosebumps, and yeah, it's fun every time.
Sign up right now, today, into the tournament. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Just sign up and play some competitive Hearthstone, because you don't lose anything. I mean, it's bad to lose the game. Maybe you will feel bad, but you will learn from it. Learn from your mistakes, play against other people, gain that experience, and then you'll get better and better.
There you are, guys. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Sign up and get involved. You know, play in some online tournaments, check out streams, get coached. There are so many ways that you can get to be a better player at Hearthstone, and maybe one day you could be here like a Secret or a Greensheep or a Hoej or a Filey fighting out for big prize money. If you want to check that video out, again, it is live now on the Gfinity YouTube channel. Share it with your friends. If you have a friend who you think needs to not let their dreams be dreams, share it with them. Share it on social media. Share it about and show people what Hearthstone is all about. Monk, it is possible for anyone to come and really take the Hearthstone scene by storm. We've seen it from so many different players over the years.
Yeah, Hoej and Greensheep, they're both examples of players. They're not really big streamers. They're not like really, really popular players, but they have gone through open tournaments. They have won these tournaments. Hoej, of course, just coming out of nowhere, winning Via Game House Cup #2. Greensheep coming out of nowhere, qualifying for BlizzCon last year, and then eventually winning DreamHack Valencia.
Yeah, it's been a huge journey for these guys, and it brings them here to the Gfinity Summer Masters 2 for our first semi-final. The players are in the booths now. They're getting ready for this game, and you can see both of them a little bit relaxed here. The Greensheep did have a little bit of a tough time of it yesterday in the booth, particularly he was in the red booth last time, so I think he possibly requested to be in the blue booth, so maybe he didn't have the bad memories from the red booth carrying him over to today.
Maybe he's a Star Trek fan, and he doesn't want to be the red guy.
This is true. You never want to be the red guy.
Yeah.
But both very relaxed players, not players. We talked a bit yesterday about players who take extensive notes. These are players who rely on their own memory, they rely on their own instincts. They don't like to get too involved in that techno aspect. They like to just they're very kind of instinctive, and they like to feel the game, Monk.
Oh, yeah. I think especially Hoej is a player that he feels the game, but he doesn't necessarily show outward emotions. In contrast, Greensheep, we saw he basically wore his heart on his sleeve yesterday.
Yeah.
Everything that was happening in the game was happening on his face as well.
Yeah, and that's what do you think of that, Lothar? The importance of maybe being calm inside or kind of letting your emotions out. Which approach do you favor?
I favor. I mean, when you compare Hearthstone to other games, to other esports, adrenaline is not something you really look forward to while playing Hearthstone. You have to be super calm, make your decisions based on knowledge of the game and not based on emotions, not based on your hunch. You know, you base here on the statistics, and you want to play you want to choose the option that has the best percentage to win. So if you are not calm and you can't calculate that, you're probably not doing a good job.
Well, speaking of statistics, we can see our first matchup here. It is going to be Hoej's Druid versus the aggressive Paladin of Greensheep. Monk, you're our stats man. How does this matchup shake out?
This matchup, it actually doesn't have a lot of data points since Aggro Paladin is more of a new deck. We do know that typically the Druid is going to be slightly favored against the Aggro Paladin in around a 2-to-1 ratio.
Well, that's going to be a pretty good advantage for Hoej, but we do see the lineups there. We see that Greensheep, we know, is bringing the Patron Warrior and the Handlock, two very strong decks, while Hoej has favored the, I think it's the mid-range Paladin, possibly? Or
that was a Secret Paladin?
Secret Paladin.
Secret Paladin, okay.
And
Mid-range Hunter.
Mid-range Hunter, yeah. Which mid-range Hunter is an interesting choice, because usually when you see a Handlock, right, you think your worst matchup is the Face Hunter, but actually the worst one is the mid-range Hunter, because it hits like a truck.
Yeah.
It hits for like 20 in one turn, and you basically die. And you can't play your Molten Giants because you had an opportunity to cast those. And if you play against a Face Hunter, the idea of the Face Hunter is just to deal a small amount of damage each turn, so they pile up, and you eventually finish your opponent. And if you do that, you practically allow your opponent, the Handlock, to play those Giants and put the defense out, like the wall of taunts, put those out.
Exactly. The Face Hunter versus Handlock matchup is actually only about a 55% win rate for the Face Hunter, while the mid-range and hybrid hunters have about an 80% win rate against the Handlock. So the stats really back up what you're saying, Lothar.
Absolutely. Well, it's time to get into our first game. These two are two of the favorites to take the title, but only one of them can go to the final. It's time to find out which one.
Thank you, Callum. I'm Sotul, and joining me here for this game is Raven, and I'm just hugely excited to be here for Championship Sunday, especially to cast a game of the quality of Greensheep versus Hoej. And I'd have to say, Raven, this is probably the first Clash of the Titans match that we have of the tournament, as most of the big names have managed to avoid each other so far.
Yeah, definitely, and this could quite easily have been the final.
Right.
You know, we could have picked these two names out the hat at the start just to be straight in the final. Two top-tier quality players, and you know, like the guys were saying, Hoej's been very relaxed and doesn't really show the emotion of anything going too wrong, but he did do pretty well yesterday in his group anyway, so maybe there wasn't even any emotion to show in a negative light. But Greensheep had a few issues late on. He struggled with his Paladin deck, not really down to him to a certain extent. It was more just not having the luck to finish the game out. But he did tell us this morning that he's going to make 0 misplays today, so that's quite the statement.
Yeah, he was very, very confident about that. He says he's really going to tighten up his play today, you know, especially with the Patron and Paladin decks that he had some issues with. I think his handlock play generally was pretty solid, pretty consistent yesterday, but definitely had 1 or 2 issues with the Patron and Paladin, so he'll be looking to tighten that up. But just getting ready to go into game 1, how do you feel about the Druid versus Paladin matchup?
Yeah, it's something we actually discussed yesterday, where for the Druid, it pretty much relies on getting swipe, because that's how you sort of clear the board early on and then build on that by playing your bigger minions.
Right.
And, you know, and if we see Greensheep do what he did yesterday and draw an Arcane Golem like he did versus the Control Warrior, like for turn 3, it's not really what you want to do against the Druid, because like a Wrath and then the extra mana, Crystal could really prove some problems. But overall, I think Greensheep's probably okay with this matchup, because like we said, unless the Druid really curves well, and I'm not sure if we saw Darnassus Aspirant in Hoej's deck.
No, Hoej is playing, as far as we've seen, a very classic BRM build of Druid. He's not playing the Living Roots, he's not playing the Darnassus Aspirant, so I'd have to say that's a little bit weaker against aggro.
Yeah, because you're not going to see those early minions to actually challenge or trade with anything that's on the board from the Paladin
against aggro, generally you'd rather have the 2-3 with the persistent ramp effect than just skip turn 2 essentially by playing Wild Growth. You want to get the board presence down. 2-3 is a nice shape to fight back against aggro minions usually anyway. So
yeah, and even with like the Wild Growth versus Darnassus Aspirant against this Paladin deck, a lot of the times there's something to actually hero power down on turn 2, even if you don't have the Aspirant, whereas like you said, skipping just opens up more damage, more ramp later, and unless you're going to ramp into the swipe, then it could prove some problems. I think the guys are just about getting into the game, though.
Yeah,
so
it looks like
the opening hands are going to be
on.
really key in this matchup.
Indeed. Druid just going to be looking really hard for that swipe. You pretty much full mulligan for it. Wouldn't be surprised here to even see Hoej throw away the Wild Growth to look for swipe, but looks like he considers Wild Growth good enough to keep in this matchup. Greensheep from his side is a very, very solid opening hand here. Although the mulligan is made and Hoej picks up the swipe. So this is a battle of 2 very good opening hands here, which I don't know about you, Raven, but I feel like this is the best type of game to watch when both players have a really solid draw. Yeah, because, you know, everyone knows the game and you can just get the bad draw, especially against an aggro deck where there's not a lot you can really do. But we can see now, you know, the Worgen Infiltrator, Argent Squire, Lepino, even then drawing into Muster for the first draw of the game, and the Blessing of Kings, which is a card we saw Greensheep kind of, I say misplay, but not play when he could have yesterday, so he definitely won't make that mistake again today. Interesting there. Greensheep had several options for turn 1 because of the fact he had the coin and the 3/1 drops in his hand. I really like front-loading like the maximum amount of damage to essentially punish the Druid for having Wild Growth. So you immediately put 4 power on the board with the coin double 1-drop and say, well, if you want a Wild Growth, I'm going to hit you in the face for 4. Yeah, I think his line of play here is to hold on to the coin, because if he then musters with a board like this, swipe ruins him. Whereas he can coin out Blessing of Kings onto the shielded Squire, and then suddenly it's like, well, this isn't even a good swipe target, and we are going to see that play, and he's just going to ignore the Shredder, which is completely correct. The Shredder isn't a taunt. So why trade with it? Like, why not? You know, you don't have. He's even got the owl for the first taunt that comes down, but Greensheep's just going to go for it, and this is a super quick start with Blessing of Might in hand as well. Yeah, with the coin Blessing of Kings option, I think you're correct. I think the slower turn 1 was definitely the way forward. We do see Druid of the Claw from Hoej's side here, because that swipe has kind of been devalued by the 5/5 Divine Shield. There really isn't a nice way to deal with that right now. Yeah, I mean, there's the option that he could play a little bit crazy and say Savage Roar to just get rid of the 5/5 with the Shredder in his face, but then you're taking so much damage, I just don't think he can afford to, especially at this point in the game. But we can see that if he does play Druid of the Claw, Greensheep's just going to ignore it because he has Owl. And
he can owl and Blessing Might quite easily, or even owl hero power if he wants to hold on to Blessing Might. Say if he gets a charge minion like an arcane golem.
Yeah, I think the Blessing of Might just ends up pushing so much damage here that do you even care about being mana efficient here with your hero power? I think you just go ahead and push here. Oh, Blessing of Kings.
What was really unfortunate as well, I say really unfortunate for Hoej there, is that he couldn't trade in a minion and destroy his Shredder.
Yes.
So that he maybe, you get another taunt or a totem to heal, or there's a few options you can get, like Unstable Ghoul, for example, would have been insane. But he couldn't actually trade a minion and get it killed. He could just run into the Divine Shield. We do see the owl go down. The buff goes on the Leponome, which is still going to do 2 damage when it dies as well.
Yeah, buffing Leponome is generally just such a powerful play, because your opponent is then forced to kill it. But then of course the Death Rattle's just there anyway to do 2 damage anyway. So always a nice buff target. We have the Divine Shield 5/5 here. Obviously, he chose not to buff that again, because then you're kind of putting it into big game hunter range.
Yeah, there's no need, and the problem is it opens up the options of your opponent only has to deal with 1 target to be really safe or safer. Whereas if you have 2 big, like medium to big targets instead of 1 massive target, your damage is spread, so they have to then deal with multiple cards, which is something Druid specifically actually struggles with a lot of the time.
Yep. So we do see turn 4, the Hoej as the Druid player is down to 9 health, but actually if he can deal with this board relatively effectively, which actually he can, there's not a huge amount of instant damage in Greensheep's hand. He has the Muster for Battle that can peck away for 1 per turn with the weapon, but he doesn't have a charger to activate that Blessing of Kings.
But the 1/1 from the Shredder,
I mean, the 1/1's not great.
To a certain extent, yes, it trades with pretty much all the Paladin minions, but also you can get a lot of better cards than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Divine Favor is a decent pickup, but not exactly what he's looking for. I think he'd rather just draw into the damage straight away here than the Divine Favor option. He's seen the swipe come down, so Muster for Battle seems very safe here, but we're going to see Druid turn 7 coming into full effect here. Other decks get to play the original Dr. 7, but Druids have always had big, powerful turn 7 plays. The Ancient of Laws, the Ancient of Wars. So
it's probably the most, other than maybe 9 mana, it's probably like the most key mana for Druid. But as your side just showed there, Greensheep's doing his thing with his Paladin deck and just dead drawing towards the end, which is really really rough. And the instant this has happened in game 1, Greensheep's mind has probably gone straight to, oh my god, not again.
Right. The draw here is going to change a lot of things for Hoej. If he'd have picked up his Force of Nature here, then there's a lot of merit to just simply like owling the Annoyatron, Keeper of the Groving the Annoyatron and just slamming face with the 5/10, because then you're setting up lethal for the following turn. The Wrath allows him to be more flexible with removal options if he wants to, but I also absolutely don't hate just dropping Dr. Boom on the board here.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is with Boom, the tokens for the 1/1 bots aren't going to do too much. And because there's a lot of tokens to kill at the moment, so if they just kill a 1 health minion, it's not that great. But the only problem is Greensheep could just have another owl in hand. This deck is 100% running 2 owls.
Right. This 5/10 didn't get owled last turn. He's drawn 2 cards with Divine Favor since then, sure. But the thing I like about the Dr. Boom here is that the Boombots are protected behind the 5/10. So if they were to stick on the board for 1 turn, that Savage Roar in his hand then represents so much value the next turn.
Yeah, I think both players are fine.
Yeah.
He's just got to slam the Boom, though, and like you said, and also this is another point we've, a lot of casters go over where you actually need to do a play to win at some point as well. Like, because he's on low health and he's not drawn any laws for heal.
Right.
So the long game might not help when your opponent's just in a Divine Favor and then he's going to draw another card. And the Paladin's still got some outs. He has seen 1 owl, though, so Hoej's going to feel safe enough to play the Dr. Boom, which is fine.
Yeah, a deck like Druid doesn't have the tools to keep playing the control game. The way double combo Druid wins against aggro is to find that 1 turn where you flip the switch, which is something that we saw Hoej do spectacularly well yesterday when he was getting rushed down very hard by a Paladin and pick the 1 turn to load up the board and say, okay, you only need 1 damage, but if you don't top deck that 1 damage, I'm Savage Roaring you and you die. And ended up winning the game because of it. So very similar play here. He just says to his opponent, sure, have owl. If you have owl, you probably win. But if you don't, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And the problem here is as well, this has happened multiple times this weekend where Greensheep has a Divine Favor, but normally with a couple of other cards in hand as well, and his opponent's had a low hand. So there's no big game from it. He has to use it, but only gets the 2 cards there.
Right.
And what's he even do? Do you just pass at this point?
Yeah, so he does have exactly the 9 damage to punch through the Ancient of War, but he would end up taking 5 additional damage with his face, and he's just going to end up losing the game here to Savage Raw, and Hoej just takes game 1 as quickly as that. Greensheep taking advantage of the wonderful new Blizzard feature to immediately concede at any point in the game.
As whatever animation is live actually finishes.
But yeah, huge comeback there from Hoej. He was down, I believe, to 9 health on turn 4, and came all the way back, found those key turns to really consolidate his advantage on the board. And
like we said, the swipe won him the game, I think. It just won him the game. And the fact that he had the Shredder and the Druid of the Claw on board to then deal with the 5/5, it was huge, because even at 1 health, the Druid of the Claw it's enough of a threat because of its damage, but the Paladin never really wants to just kill a 4/1 non-taunted minion. But yeah, again, we see another game where Hoej's Druid is played perfectly against an aggro deck. Like, he's so good. Like, that's all I can say. He knows the reach of the deck and how much he can push it and what he needs to do to take the victory.
And Druid does take a lot of flack for being one of the more simple classes to play in Hearthstone, and that is certainly true of sort of playing Druid against decks more controlling than you, because you really do. You just hit your curve, you play out pretty much the most expensive minion you can on each turn, and then you try and kill them with a combo.
Your minions on curve are better than their minions on curve, like 1 for 1.
Right, but the difficult matchups with Druid are the matchups like that, where you're playing against a Hunter or a Paladin that's more aggressive than you, and you have to leverage your deck that's not really built to be controlling, for the right number of turns, and then find the turn to flick the switch and really put the aggression back on them.
Yeah, because if you do it 1 turn too early, you lose. If you do it 1 turn too late, you lose. So it's really important to get that exact turn just to activate everything and say, right, next turn I win.
Absolutely.
Or that's it. That's the game. And that's the way you have to play against these types of decks. So Hoej's got Hunter and his Paladin left versus Greensheep's full lineup of his aggro Paladin that we just saw, his Patron Warrior and his Handlock. I just like Hoej, the fact that he's brought Mid Hunter. It's my favorite deck, so that's really good.
There's certainly a little bit of flavor to his Mid Hunter, because we saw he's playing Web Spinners and Leper Gnomes, which is a strange combination, because normally you see a Web Spinner and you think, okay, mid-range Hunter. You see a Leper Gnome, you think, okay, well, it's Face Hunter or it's Hybrid Hunter. So the fact that he's playing both, we're not quite sure where exactly that deck stands on how aggressive it is, but definitely it's not an outright aggressive build. I don't think there's Arcane Golems and things in there. It's more along the Savannah Highmane Houndmaster kind of
I don't think we saw even like a Glaive Zuka or anything. So, I mean, the Hunter does line up pretty well versus the Warlock, as Lothar mentioned earlier on the desk, which is completely correct. And the classes are actually Paladin versus Paladin.
Gonna see a Paladin mirror. Okay, so we have the more consistent aggression of the outright aggro Paladin versus the explosive power of what we believe to be Mysterious Challenger Secrets Paladin from Hoej, and I think a very aggressive build of it as well, if I remember rightly from yesterday.
Yeah, I think so. It wasn't. I think we only saw like one sort of mid-range Mysterious Challenger deck.
So this is a really draw-dependent matchup. The early game is everything. You might even in many matchups, Secret Paladin players tend to keep Mysterious Challenger just because it's your win condition.
Yeah, you play it and then you should win.
But in an aggro Paladin mirror, the early game is so important that I think you even throw it away most of the time. So
one of the points on the flip side of that as well is aggro Paladin, unlike some other decks, don't really have a good way to interact with Mysterious Challenger. With Warrior, you can proc it all and then maybe just execute and things like that to deal with the minion that gets avenged. But aggro Paladin is just going to go face, but we do see Secret Keeper, Minibot, and Blessing of Kings.
Yeah, Secret Keeper, Minibot, Avenge is a pretty nice opening hand for the Secret Paladin, but on the flip side, Argent Squire, a Neutron, and now a Minibot coming into hand is not terrible either. So yet again, we're going to see a matchup between two decks that have drawn pretty well in their opening hands, which is something that you like to see.
Yeah, and it seems really weird. Like I say, these decks are both aggressive, but very different sort of endgame win condition. Double.
So many options here.
I think you are brave enough to play double Secret Keeper.
Yeah, so
I like it.
Secret Keeper Coin Avenge gets punished pretty hard by Abusive Sergeant. So it looks like he's gonna go. Okay.
He's playing the middle of the ground.
He's going for the middle road, and then so I like this play because then next turn you can go for you have flexibility. You can either play Minibot or you can go for the Secret Keeper Avenge, and then you already have the multiple minions in play for the Avenge to proc. So it probably works out very nicely.
Yeah, and this is where again, aggro matchups, a lot of players say, oh, aggro, just hit face. When you're in a matchup like this, trades make or break the game, really. There's not a lot of times where you can, unless you've got draw and they don't, you can just keep smacking face. You have to play for the board.
We see Mustafa Battle coming into hand from Hoej, which is a fantastic card early in the aggro mirror if your opponent doesn't have their own muster or a consecration.
Yeah.
Just because it represents so much value on the board with really small tokens that you don't mind trading because you're not sacrificing that much damage.
And even at worst, a consecration, it's their whole turn 4.
Yes.
And you're playing the aggressive deck. And you keep a weapon, which is, again, we mentioned yesterday, the weapon from Muster is so good versus another Paladin, because it trades, especially an aggro Paladin, that you can just pick off all the minions.
Hoej considering that turn very heavily. I think all options were valid there, killing the mini-bot, going face, and the play that he ended up doing with the Argent Squire. At some point in this matchup, we're probably going to see one player or the other identify themselves, or at least represent that they are going to be the aggressor in this matchup. And it's up to the other player to then decide whether they believe them, essentially. Like, do I allow you to be the aggressor and start to play the control game?
Based on my hand and the way you're playing, can I be more aggressive, or do I actually have to start being the defensive player in this?
Right, but we see a 5/5 Secret Keeper in play here, which is...
running into a 1/2, though.
Yeah, it does have to go into a 1/2, and we do see Seal of Champions in Greensheep's hand, which can take care of this quite effectively, as can the Blessing of Kings. So interesting to see which one he'll go for here. The extra flexibility of the 1-drop now makes both options very viable. So which one would you go with here, Raven?
It's a tough one. I think you need minions on the board, so I think I like the abusive because he's so far behind in terms of board. You can abusive, get rid of the Secret Keeper, and one's already gone as well. So they're gone, they're finished. And this is getting too big to handle, and you don't really want to owl it either, because again, it's not something you have to try and punch through. It's something that's going to punch through you.
The other important point here with the Seal of Champions as well is that it leaves the mini-bot with 3 health, whereas the Blessing of Kings would leave it with 2 health, whereas the Blessing of Kings would leave it with only 1. So there isn't a natural trade on the board for this mini-bot now. He has to throw 2 sources of damage into it.
Thing is now, do you play the abusive? I think you have to.
Yeah, I like
it.
it.
Need the board.
Yeah, tempo 2-1.
About Greensheep's deck as well, I think double Blessing of Kings and a Seal of Champions. That's a lot of buff cards if you don't have any minions. I know the deck does, but when Greensheep's in a position like this, where the minions are almost certainly going to be traded away, because there's another muster, there's a shielded mini-bot. Even he could trade and then put a redemption up, hopefully for the mini-bot, and then it just comes back as a 2-1 Divine Shield.
We do see Hoej has managed to walk the difficult tightrope here of he's been ahead on board the entire game, but he also has more cards in hand, which is a difficult thing to achieve in an aggro mirror. So he's been playing the early game turns here very, very efficiently, maximizing everything he can. And you can see this is an aggro mirror, right? And we are on turn 4 going into turn 5. Both players above 27 health.
Yeah, so it's all about the trades.
Yeah, there has not been face attacks going on just yet. Greensheep really needs to pick up something big here, because that Blessing of Kings is just sat dead in his hand. Divine Favor is not it. Divine Favor to draw 1 card.
And he's already behind on board as well. Lepanome, fine, but it's what does he actually need to draw now? Does he need a Consecrate?
He needs a Consecrate.
Or even maybe a True Silver to just do something over 2 turns. I mean, it's really tough.
Yeah, True Silver wouldn't be a terrible draw, but Consecrate definitely seems like the one here. But even then, Shielded Minibot just being so annoying, and we see Haunted Creeper as well. This deck tends to play more sticky minions than the outright aggro pally because of the secrets like Redemption and Avenge and Competitive Spirit
on the board.
Exactly. But this is a much more board-focused deck than the outright aggro pally that's playing charge minions and burst.
And we see the Consecrate.
Oh, big pickup.
Not bad. And the thing is, a token will respawn from Redemption, right? A token's on the board before the minibot. I mean, the minibot won't die anyway.
Yes.
So the token
will respawn because it was in play before the Haunted Creeper.
Problem here is, though, you Consecrate, you leave a 2/2, a 1/1, and then 2 more 1/1s from the Creeper on the board. So you've consecrated a board that's just remade itself almost.
Because of the Haunted Creeper play last turn from Hoej, it's actually not a particularly good Consecrate. If that Haunted Creeper was, say, a Lepanome or something, then it would actually be a reasonable looking Consecrate.
And Greensheep's seen this straight away. There's almost no point hitting Consecrate this turn.
Right.
What worries me now, or at least should worry Greensheep, is the second Hoej draws into a Mysterious Challenger. Like, how does Greensheep respond? Like, does he just lose?
Ooh, he's gonna respect the 5/5 here and trade into it. This is very, very interesting to me, because even if he has the read that Greensheep is making the tempo play that he did, which is trying to consolidate a minion on the board and then uses Consecrate to back it up, he's still asking huge questions of his opponent to to deal with the board, because he would have 2 Haunted Creepers in play and a shielded minibot.
Yeah.
So, you know, even with the 5/5 in play, the Consecrate is still not a clean answer.
Yeah, well, the deck just doesn't run the answers, and especially
Right.
on 7 mana, there are no answers to that whole board at all. This is still fine, because, again, what we said earlier, the Consecrate means that the rest of your turn is very limited, and the Creeper's still on the board, and there's a redemption.
In this case, the trade with the Divine Shield from the minibot may look strange because he looks like he's playing into Consecration more, but in fact, the shielded minibot I think is the first thing in play that's currently on the board. So if he Consecrates right now, he'll actually get a 2/1 Divine Shield shielded minibot back. So actually removing your own Divine Shield there was actually a play around Consecration, whereas in most cases it's usually the opposite.
You're like, yeah, it's Divine Shield, it's not going to die.
Right.
So Greensheep has equipped the weapon. He does have Consecrating Lepinome in hand, and Hoej is just going to trade away, make some room for that Creeper. But this is just to draw cards, though, because if a Consecrate happens, the Creeper's not going to spawn any tokens, right?
This matchup has just gone so perfectly for Hoej so far in that
competitive spirit, the new secret.
He started off so he started off so aggressively. He got the board, he got the life advantage. He also had more cards in hand. But then, despite having card advantage in the early game, he's managed to Divine Favor for 2 cards.
Yeah,
whereas Greensheep Divine Favored for 1. Like, what is happening this game? Yeah, everything is coming up Hoej right now.
And at this point in the game, is there any point not playing competitive spirit?
Yeah, you
use a full
slam
board. If it gets Consecrate,
here.
fine, but you are left with tokens,
yeah,
probably.
I mean, competitive spirit just threatens lethal next turn, so I think that it's a pretty obvious
and
play
then,
here.
like, at worst, the board gets fully cleared. You just slam Shredder.
Yep.
It's like, how are you going to deal with that now, you know?
Well, to Greensheep's disappointment, that Haunted Creeper will be coming. No, it won't actually, will it? Interactions here, boys. No. So the Redemption just will not spawn. So in fact, the Redemption is probably going to bring back a shielded minibot if I've remembered the orders that these things were played.
No,
Boom.
it's the minibot. You win this round, Subtle.
Well fought, I concede. So Lepinome going to come down here, and at this point, Arcane Golem, he's scared of this being Noble Sacrifice, in which case you look incredibly stupid charging an Arcane Golem onto the board.
At this point, can he not?
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah,
I think you pass the point where you can play around things like that.
Right.
Yes, you get shut down if you don't, and he's choosing not to. You do get shut down, but giving your opponent more mana on when he's got 1 card in hand on 8 in an aggro deck, you just don't care. And he needs to win at some point as well.
Oh
my God.
Double Shredder draw. I'd just like to highlight, though, that how smart the play was from Hoej to deliberately remove the shield from his minibot, because that is the reason why he has this 3/2 on the board right now. Yeah, he has a 3/2 Divine Shield on the board right now instead of a 2/2 token, purely because of the fact that he's experienced enough with the secrets interactions to know the play, which was to make sure his minibot died if there was AoE.
Yeah, and as well now, Hoej's taken the trades, which again, some players would think, oh, you know, you're so far ahead, just smack him in the face. He's got 2 Shredders to deal with, but he's seen a Divine Favor and his opponent's effectively top decking. So he's just like, you know what, I'm just going to play safe. I feel pretty confident, especially with the weapon as well, to just chip away the tokens, that he can win the matchup. And what's it? The draws are just so important at this point, and that's a bit dead. Unless he wants to trade the board again.
IMB Cal is kind of a brick, but you know it's not like there are no silence targets on the board. There is kind of a useful minibot to silence here, and he's already seen 1 Kings and 1 Seal of Champions being used, so the potential for needing to silence off buffs is not all that high.
Hoej's playing super safe by trading though. Would you not take your opponent to 4?
I think.
What can he top deck for that much extra damage?
So he would have 7, he'd need to top deck 9. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, but you can present the argument the other way, right? You're still setting up lethal here. You're still setting up lethal here with the 2 Shredders. You know, there is literally no world where he draws lethal, and at the same time...
That 1 card for 14 damage.
Yeah, what extra outs are you drawing that let him control the board enough here to prevent your lethal? So
he's hoping for Doomsayer, I guess?
Yeah.
That's the only
Take your pick,
draw,
basically.
Right?
Which one of these Shredders does Greensheep think has a Doomsayer in it? I say the left one has a Doomsayer in it. We'll never know. We'll never know.
Another interesting card from a Shredder.
So that is going to be game 2 for Hoej, and he goes out to a 2-0 lead. And I talked a little bit, Raven, yesterday about how the difference between 2-0 and 1-1 is the biggest one-game swing in a Conquest set.
Completely agree.
So yeah, Hoej being up 2-0 here and now only having to find a win with his mid-range Hunter, which mid-range Hunter, one of those decks, if it curves out well enough, it beats most things. So you pretty much just have 3 games here to find one decent curve with mid-range Hunter, and then you're in the final.
Yeah, but especially when you look at, I mean, the aggressive Paladin might actually be a problem. I can't remember what traps Hoej's running in his deck. Is it just freezing?
In the mid-range Hunter?
Yeah.
I do not remember.
Yeah, so I imagine it's probably just freezing traps, but again, the aggro Paladin, if it gets, again, a decent start, similar to the start we saw then, was pretty good, you can actually just run away with the game.
Absolutely,
But the Patron Warrior, again, you'll probably agree on this, is pretty favoured versus mid-range Hunter.
Yep.
And the Warlock mid-range Hunter, you've got to say, is going to do pretty well.
Hugely favoured. Yeah, I was slightly surprised by the size of the stats that we were given from Monk.
It's scary, wasn't it?
80% is a big number, but I agree definitely with Lothar's analysis that mid-range Hunter is the one you want to be playing against Handlock.
Yes.
So going into game 3 here for Greensheep, which of these decks that you have remaining do you want to lead with? Do you feel it even matters? What's your strategy in this situation to make a 0-3 reverse sweep?
I normally just lock the same deck in again. It's very different though, because a lot of the time you don't particularly have super strong or super weak matchups to the last deck. It's normally really like, well, you know, pretty close or maybe opinion based. But I would probably just lock the Paladin in again, because I think you can just grab a win. Maybe same with Patron. I think I'm a believer in the fact that if you're 2-0 down, just get one on the board. You know, just have your best chance at getting 1 point and then build off that if you can. But if you just play like say you locked in Warlock and with the idea of, well, this is my worst deck and I have to win with it at some point.
Right.
I think locking in Warlock after you've just been like slammed 2-0 and it's your worst matchup is going to be, it's not a good mindset to be in when you're playing the match. You just take your best deck, hopefully stomp your opponent to get a win on the board and then carry on from there.
Yeah, I can definitely see the merits in that strategy. But from Hoej's side, he has to be feeling super comfortable here. Like we said, mid-range Hunter, just one of those decks where if you're given 3 chances to beat any deck, really, you kind of fancy your chances, because if you just hit that, you know, Web Spinner, Mad Scientist, Animal Companion curve one game, you feel in pretty good shape against most things, right? So
yeah, and because like mid-range can play so well, again, what Lothar was saying, you play so well around the Molten Giant issue because you can punch out a lot of damage. It feels so much more comfortable, and especially like Hoej building off yesterday, 2-0'd yesterday in groups. He's now 2-0 versus on paper his hardest opponent for the rest of the day. You know, and confidence and like just being comfortable just impacts the game so much, as we saw last night from when some of the players were maybe getting a little bit tilted, a little bit flustered, and progressively making more mistakes. So
and it looks like we're just seeing the matchups come up here, and it looks like Greensheep is going to follow your advice, Raven, and just stick it out with his aggro pally. I think there's a certain element of pride coming into this as well, because we saw him struggle a lot with the aggro paladin yesterday. So I think he wants to show that, like, this is a deck that I know he likes. I know the Dignitas players like a lot, the aggro paladin builds. So I think he wants to show that, like, this is a good deck. I'm just getting unlucky. I'm not quite getting the draws I need with this deck. I'm going to start my comeback with a nice sweep out with paladin and show this Hunter who's boss in the aggro matchups.
Yeah, and like I said, I think paladin or Patron Warrior was fine to pick. I just definitely wouldn't have picked the worst matchup.
Right.
And just try and save it, and just at worst, I lost 3-2, not 3-0. But yeah, I mean, Hoej's just going to be pretty confident with his Hunter. I imagine there's not much more to say in Hoej than that. He's doing really well. He's playing really well. You know, he's not making any mistakes. He's playing the game as well as good, and he seems to be getting the good draws as well, which is always nice.
He does, but yeah, he's earning them as well. It's not like he's just coasting through on his top decks. He's making some really high-level intuitive plays as well. But for what it's worth, Greensheep here looking a bit more calm and collected than he did yesterday. We saw definite signs of tilt yesterday when he was getting some rough beats with the Paladin deck. Looks a bit more calm and collected here. He's just staring off into the distance, thoughtful, considering his chances, maybe just like trying to internalize everything he knows about this matchup, you know, Paladin versus Hunter.
You can see the focus.
Yeah, that's a great shot right there.
That's just to let me take a breath, and then I'm going to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke at length yesterday about the maturity of Greensheep for such a young player. He's definitely someone that's built to cope with this sort of situation. So I would not be surprised to see a comeback here. I mean, I would be surprised because it's just statistically unlikely.
But if someone's going to do it, Greensheep can do it, right?
Exactly. So mulligans, as always, hugely important. Greensheep playing the very consistent aggro deck. Hoej with a bit of a more mid-range curve can sometimes brick with the opening hand, but we see it's Greensheep here that's basically not hit anything, whereas Hoej has hit one of his key cards already, which is the Unleash the Hounds.
One of the positives for Greensheep, though, he is on the coin, which I don't really know what you think about this, but with this hand, for example, being on the coin just puts so much pressure on the board so quickly.
Right.
And Hunter actually struggles to deal with it that early, turn 1, turn 2.
Coin Knife Juggler looks to be the play that Greensheep goes for. He's going full greed. We do see the quick shot, which is one of the only answers, but I think the only answer you can possibly have to a turn 2 Knife Juggler as Hunter usually, right? Unless you're playing Arcane Shot.
Or Glaive Zuka.
Glaive Zuka, yeah.
But I think like at this point, this looks bad because we knew he had quick shot in his hand.
Right.
But that's 100% the play you make.
Yeah,
With that hand, you coin out that juggler.
Sure.
Because if it doesn't die, you may almost just win the game there and then. But
We
two
do-
Lepinomes isn't a bad follow-up.
Absolutely not. And we do see a copy of Flare in Hoej's deck, which is not going to be finding much use against this deck. And as I believe you were about to point out, Alex,
and a Glaive Zuka.
A Glaive Zuka as well. So this deck perhaps is more hybrid than we may have viewed it as
Hybrid
yesterday.
with Web Spinner, I guess.
Yeah, hybrid with Web Spinner. So there may actually be things like Wolf Riders or Arcane Golems in this deck that we didn't account for yesterday. So interesting to see the rest of Hoej's draws here. He could be drawing pretty much anything really at this point.
This is bit of a, not a scary moment, but definitely a decision to mull over for a little bit. Do you unleash and clear the 2, like, it's 4 damage next turn, plus another 2, plus another 4 when they die. Do you want to get them off the board now with Unleash? But it's only 2 minions, and the aggro paladin can build up, especially with Muster. Like, Unleashing against Muster, or even maybe a bit later with Juggler Unleash, can just win you the match straight off. But it's whether you choose to just take the hit now, or and lose Unleash, or do what Hoej's actually chosen to do, and it's just play the Glaive Zuka, trade with 1, and wait for the much more powerful Unleash.
Yeah, but I think before TGT, you wouldn't have even considered the Unleash too hard, but now you've already seen the Seal of Champions in Greensheep's deck.
2 Blessing of Kings.
Yes, but like we're talking about turn 3, so Seal of Champions is the really important play. Whereas beforehand, you know, the only important turn 3 play was Muster for Battle. That's what you wanted to have the answer for. But clearing the board there actually had a lot of merit to prevent the potential Seal of Champions punish.
Well, you know, we've seen from Hoej before, when he's playing against these aggro decks, he knows how much of his own life he can actually play with to get the optimum amount of value out of his own cards. But this is now, you know, a lot of push.
That is a lot, yeah. 15 health on turn 4, but we did already see Hoej win a game with a kind of similar mid-rangey deck. Mid-range Hunter and Fast Druid are fairly similar decks.
Yeah, and he can actually Unleash and Owl this turn. So holding on to the Unleash made all the difference, and that's suddenly pretty reasonable now. He's still not in a fantastic position, but having the Shredder and the Owl on board, instantly having minions when your opponent doesn't really, when they're playing the aggro deck, it's pretty decent. And the Houndmaster, if the Houndmaster lands onto the Owl, like that's pretty okay.
It's good.
To get a ton up.
He does have a full board clear here as well. And again, we see Greensheep in this situation that he's been in a couple of times where he gets off to a really explosive start, but then he doesn't have the instant damage in his hand. He doesn't have his Arcane Golems. His sources of damage in his hand are things like Seal of Champions or Blessing of Kings.
Do you think that might be too many buff cards? Having 2 Blessing of Kings and the Seal of Champions?
I think the deck plays enough charges. I think we haven't seen Greensheep drawing his South Sea deck hands today, which we saw were in the deck yesterday. So I think when you play the amount of charges this deck does, you know, the buff cards are there to really be explosive forms of damage. So I think it's fine. It's definitely a risk. It's definitely a less consistent build of the deck than just playing more direct damage cards and a bit of stickiness. That Millhouse Mana Storm, though, wow.
He got 2 reasonable juggles, though.
He did,
He played the minions off the board and made his own board a little bit safer.
Indeed.
And removed the beast, which is key.
Right, and not quite enough mana this turn for Hoej to answer back with the Animal Companion and the Houndmaster. So he's really going to cross his fingers for a Misha here, and that's exactly what he picks up. No real visible signs of reaction from Greensheep. So
he is swinging in his chair whilst his head is shaking a little bit.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of movement, but there was big emotive reactions yesterday from Greensheep, and he's definitely looks like he's making an effort to keep that sort of thing in check today, which is very interesting.
It's interesting that he's not used. I would have thought about kill command in the 3-2. And just save your Millhouse on a bit more health?
I think based on how we've seen Hoej play over this weekend, I think at this point, despite the fact he's 12 to 28, he now considers himself the aggro. Because now he has the board, he thinks, okay, that kill command is going to go face and it's going to win me the game.
Especially with Houndmaster on to what you can't presume the Misha's going to survive.
Yeah.
But if it does, like, it's insane because Houndmaster is such a great card in that it creates a taunt, especially against aggro. But like you also drop a 4/3.
Yeah.
Like that's a good chunk of damage as well. Like
I think Houndmaster when it hits is probably just the best 4-drop in the game. Because you can compare it directly to Shredder in the sense that they're both 4/3 bodies, and then with the Houndmaster you're getting +2/+2. Which is, around the average stats of a Shredder drop, 2/2. But that 2/2 has charge.
Yeah.
Come on. Give everything Hunter, every Hunter card charge, right? That's how you play the class.
Don't.
So he picks up a Leponome here. Not of much use, but nice to get a little bit of extra pressure on the board. But the big play this turn is the Houndmaster, which just creates so much extra pressure on the board.
Yeah, and he doesn't even need to flare at the moment. He used all his mana, created the board presence, and he's going to push for more damage now.
Yep. Pushes for 12 this turn and now sets up
Next
lethal.
turn he just wins.
Yep. And we have no lethal opportunities here from Greensheep, so he's going to have to find some way to reverse this board state pretty quickly, which he does have a very nice card for doing that in Seal of Champions, but unfortunately it's only a +3 buff, and that gives him multiple ways to do 5 and a way to do 4, but unfortunately the number we're looking for here is 6.
Yeah.
So Seal
I mean, he can
Champions...
buff the mini-bot, you run the 1/1 token in, and then run the Worgen into the 4/1. To reduce the, because the damage is still a lot even with Misha.
Well, you would buff. There's no point buffing the mini bot, right? Because that already has the Divine Shield, so you'd put the Divine Shield on something else. Yeah. So yeah,
one of those blind moments.
Greensheep's way is slightly better here. So he removes the Beast from the board. So what questions is he asking of his opponent here? He has 10 damage on the board plus hero power is 12, so he is not dead to kill command here.
Yeah, I think you had to kill the Millhouse because you've seen aggressive cards like Leponome.
And kill command, we do see kill command coming into hand here, but looks like we're going to start with cycling the flare.
That's fine. He's got plenty of mana to mess around with.
Second web spinner.
Double web spinner at this point. I mean, it procs kill command, right?
It does, but you can kind of afford to play both of them because they're going to recycle beasts into your hand anyway when they die. So if they don't stick to the board, there's if you manage to hit 2 beasts that aren't cheap enough to play kill command with, then
you were not meant to win the game.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to see face again. Both web spinners being played here, and the hero power to put him to 8. So again, just representing lethal on the following turn. Greensheep from his side has 6 damage, so he needs to top deck 5, which is almost impossible with this deck. Would need to be some combination of Divine Favor, but with only 1 card in Hoej's hand, not even Divine Favor is going to do it. I don't believe there's any 1 card unless there's a Leroy that we haven't seen yet that could be a top deck win there. So again, perfect calculation from Hoej to set up his own lethal while denying Greensheep's possible lethals.
Yeah. And it's a really awkward situation for Greensheep. I don't really know how he's going to get himself out of it because, as we said, like the 1/1, the web spinners are beasts, and he knows they'll proc kill command, and if he has it, he loses. If he kills them, then you can either A, get pretty okay beasts, or the bad beasts are normally the ones that you can play with kill command.
Right.
So there's no like good outcome. I mean, I guess he has to clear, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't full clear here, then I mean, if he decides he needs to play around kill command, he has to full clear. Yeah. But at this point, it might be a better play just to say you don't have kill command, which is the option we're going for here.
And hero power.
It's the correct play in the situation because kill command is not a card that he can ever beat, so therefore it doesn't exist. You just rule it out. I can't beat that card, therefore he doesn't have it. But we do see that Hoej in fact does have it, meaning that is a clean sweep. 3-0 for Hoej in what we built up as, the Battle of the Titans in this tournament.
It was supposed to go to 5 games.
Right. We wanted to sit here and cast an extended long series, but it's hard to be too upset about what we watched, which was an absolute Hearthstone clinic from Hoej, just absolutely taking his opponent apart.
Yet again, same as yesterday, and all it does is re-establish the fact that Hoej's definitely the favourite to win this. Right. He was probably the favourite coming into today, and after beating Greensheep, it's just even more solid.
And it's such a big thing for Hoej. I think Monk talked about this yesterday on the analyst desk. He talked about how Hoej felt it was important to follow up his Via game win with more big tournament wins, because when he came into Via game and he won the tournament, he played fine that tournament, but he did also get a lot of really good draws. So there was a lot of players around the pro scene that were looking at Hoej and saying, okay, did this guy just come into the tournament and just god draw everyone? Like, is he actually good? But then to be consistent and to keep showing up to these tournaments and keep performing as well as he's done, it's a huge, check mark to say, yeah, I'm actually one of the top players in this game.
It's key in terms of developing your career as a Hearthstone player. And all he really needs to do, to anyone that questions him now, is just look at the Gfinity VODs. Every single game.
Yeah, he's playing perfectly.
It's insane. Yeah, absolutely insane.
He's playing absolutely perfectly. So he will progress through to the final now, and he's going to await the winner of the other semi-final.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so huge win for Hoej. He sits in grand finals waiting for the other semi-final. So let's throw it back over to Callum at the analyst desk to see what they thought of this game.
Thanks, guys. A solid performance for Hoej once again, sailing through yet again. We saw him just kind of coast through his group a little bit and made light work of Greensheep there, Lothar.
I think Greensheep kind of made a really difficult call in the last turn of the last game. I think it was correct to actually trade because you have still an option to win next turn, and he saw that the card that was in the hunter's hand wasn't used for like 5 turns or even 6. So it's either a Savannah High main or a kill command. I don't see another option, because if it would be a hunter's mark, it would have been used instantly to kill anything just to get out of Divine Favor's way. So I think that the last turn was really a hard call, but I think it was correct to trade and not to go face.
Yeah, I think another problem that Greensheep had was maybe he was a bit stubborn. Not only with his deck choices, I mean, Aggro Paladin, it's not really seen too much these days after the advent of Secret Paladin, but also the choice to queue up Aggro Paladin 3 times in a row. It was kind of like he was trying to prove something to someone, trying to even justify his deck choices.
Well, he played it 6 times in a row right now, because the last day he had to play 3 games with the Paladin in the last to win, to seal the deal, right? To get to advance to advance to the semifinals, and now he queued up 3 times the same Paladin list. So he played it 6 times in a row, and he went 1-5 with it. So.
Let's talk about the comfort of Hoej there and how just kind of relaxed and assured he looked through at that. I'm thinking mostly of game 1. Obviously, the Druid getting the Paladin getting a really good start, but the Druid going down to 9 health and then battling back that Ancient of War, doing so much work. A card which kind of fell out of favor in Druid for a little while, but is now seeing something of a resurgence, Lothar.
Yeah, it is, because of the fact that Paladins have always issues with huge creatures, right? The only answer is an Silence or Equality, and most of the aggressive decks are not playing Equality, so the only answer is in Silence, and the Silence doesn't really necessarily deal with the creature because it's still a 5/5. So Ancient of War is really good in the current metagame as a one-off in a Druid list, because unless of course you go full Taunt Druid with Sentience, with Belchers, with Ancient of Wars, and like the new 5/6 creatures with Joust mechanic, right?
To be honest, I thought that Ancient of War was always good in the metagame. It's just that when TGT came out, for about a 1-week duration, everyone just wanted to try the new cards. So everyone's like, oh, I guess Ancient of War is like the card that I cut. But then everyone's realizing, oh, Patron still exists. There's all these aggro decks still. I think I'm going to throw Ancient of War back in.
Yeah, Ancient of War is like a huge Twilight Drake with Defender Vargas buff built in.
You can think of it that way, yes. That's one way to think of it.
Mark, obviously Hoej looking very good for the final right now. Obviously he's in the final, looking very good going into the final. Has looked very good this whole weekend. He looks almost unstoppable. Can anyone stop Hoej, and what do they need to do that?
I think Hoej, he's just been playing very consistently. I haven't really seen him make almost any mistakes throughout this entire tournament, and that's not something I can say about a lot of players. However, one player on the other side of the bracket who has made minimal mistakes is Seeksri. So I think Seeksri actually has a decent chance to take out Hoej, although I still wouldn't put my money on him.
And he has to still win the semifinal first.
Yeah, that is going to be our next game. Of course, Seeksri and Filey, we're going to be seeing our second semi-final. We'll break all that down, obviously, when we get to it, coming to that second match. But it looks like Hoej is, the favorite to win at this stage. Obviously, he's eliminated Cypher, eliminated Greensheep. What do you think, Lothar? Can anyone stop Hoej?
I think he is like unstoppable in this tournament. I hope he will take it.
Well, we're going to find out who Hoej is going to be up against in the grand final in just a few moments. It's going to be Secret versus Fury in our second semi-final. We're just going to go to a quick break. We're going to bring you that match when we come back.